Welcome everyone to my new car. This one is a Toyota 1986 Celica Supra. It's got a 2.8 liter inline six, and these are both now my daily drivers. I'm splitting my time between each of these. This one is a 1987, of course, 911 Cabriolet. It's my newest car. I have four classics from the 60s to this one being the 87. But I'm splitting my time. I've owned this one since December. It's like 6 months already. So I'm going to share with you guys what it's like to daily drive these classics. They're only 1 year apart, but there's tons of differences between them. Lots of quirks on each one. So I'm going to give you my honest opinion of the Toyota and the 911 as a daily driver. This one is certainly the better car. However, you can buy like 3 Supras for one 911. So is the 911 really 3 times better than the Supra? You know, probably not. In fact, there's a few things that the Supra does better, which I'll explain. Number 1, air conditioner. Actually, both the heater and the air conditioner work amazing in this Toyota. This car has been converted to R134A, but it works just like a modern car. It's got plenty of big vents. You know, one big one here off to the side, another one there for the passenger. It's got great defroster. Basically, the climate control in this car works great. And then probably the main reason why I like this car so much is it's got so much space. This being a hatchback means I can put a lot of stuff here in the back. It's got rear seats, they're folded down, but this is almost like a truck bed if you ask me. This is not the stock stereo that came in 1986. But this is a Toyota radio and it works very, very well. It's both cassette and CD and it sounds amazing. It has some amplifiers and a subwoofer even. Here's that subwoofer. It's called the Bazooka. These were super common in the 80s, but they sound amazing. Like the sound system in this car, for whatever reason, is just really good. Another thing I really like about the Toyota that the Porsche does not have is this is a pre-OBD2 or OBD system, but it does have diagnostic codes, and it also has a bunch of diagnostic connectors that you can check, like functions of the O2 sensor and all sorts of troubleshooting built into the ECU that really, for these computer-controlled ignitions, I think is really helpful. I know Lexus did like a commercial with like a wine glass. This isn't as elaborate, but it's such a smooth engine. Like if I just hold it here on the valve cover, it's the same. Just really nice and smooth. And that's the RPM gauge. It basically just stays right there. Real similar fuel injection, oddly enough, as the Porsche. It uses a Bosch fuel injection system, and there's a lot of similarities in the way it functions. It runs an ECU. It also runs an airflow meter to measure how much air is going into the engine. But the fuel injection system, a lot of the sensors are basically different calibrations, but the same exact parts as you see on the 911. The visibility in the Supra is a little bit better than the 911. Especially since the 911 is a cabriolet and it doesn't have quarter windows. It's not bad, but there's this spot right behind this headrest that's usually, you know, hard to see through. And the back window, you know, this one needs to be replaced, but it's a little bit cloudy. So the visibility is not as great, but the side mirrors are bigger, so I like that. The door mirrors are a little small in the Supra, but they work just fine. They are adjustable, they're power mirrors. These are the power mirror controls here. But in general, I think the visibility is just a little bit better in this car, and it's certainly a bigger car, a little bit more roomy. There's so many differences. The obvious differences are, you know, rear engine versus front engine. Air-cooled versus water-cooled. You know, cabriolet versus hatchback. The Supra is power steering. The 911 is not. Start this one, you use the key on the left. Start that one, it's on the right with a quirky little button. The pedal positions are different. These pedals on the 911 hinge from the floor. It's a very natural kind of place to rest your heel. The Supra pivots from under the dash, so they pivot in a completely different arc. The 911 is a manual 5-speed. The Supra is also a manual 5-speed. However, the gear ratio in the Supra is so much shorter. The 911 is certainly designed for like an Autobahn type driving experience, much higher gear ratios, a little bit more power as well. Didn't even make it across the intersection without having to shift. See, I can just turn it like with my fingers. The power steering is so good, really good at low speed. The thing I don't like about it is it's really over boosted. It doesn't have good feel at higher speeds. It feels kind of mushy, kind of disconnected from the road. I don't think all power steering cars are like that, because my previous car, the Mazda 3, had power steering and it was really good. So the one thing I think they could have done better in this car is to kind of tone down the power steering a little bit. It seems a little bit overdone. It's not as connected to the road. I mean, it's just a little mushy in the turns. It definitely goes where you want it to go, but it doesn't have that same positive feeling that the 911 has. The suspension on this car is very good. It corners flat, and it was actually designed by Lotus. It's rear independent, rear suspension, you know, limited slip differential in the rear. It's a good car, it's a good design. I just think the steering, it doesn't feel as nice as the 911. The steering on the 911 is just so precise, and you can feel the road as you're turning. It just feels great. Lane changes are just effortless. It's real good feeling on the road. You know, you can feel the grip coming and going. It's just fantastic steering on the 911. Turn in is amazing. It's just a real positive feel. What it's not good at is real slow speed parking lots are a bit challenging. So when you're pulling into a parking spot, it's a lot to get it to turn. I think it's a small price to pay for just excellent steering on this car. The only thing quirky about this engine, other than being in the back and being air-cooled, is that all the oil is actually stored in a tank in the fender. Most of the oil, I should say. So it basically is a dry sump system. Some people want to like, oh, check the oil. You can't check the oil when the engine's off. If the engine's off, it's going to show that it's low on oil. So if someone borrows the car and they're like, oh, I checked the oil and it was low, so I added a quart. That's a no-no. It's got to be warm and it's got to be running in order to check the oil. This brake light is, I guess, a new law in 1986, had to have a third brake light. So this is kind of a ugly implementation of a brake light, if you ask me. I think the Supra did that a little bit better. One thing that's kind of unique about this car that I don't understand is to get the key out, you know, you turn the engine off, you can't remove the key. You have to push this button on the top to get the key out. So push the button, then you can turn it all the way there, and then the key can come out. It's a little weird. I don't know if I don't know what the purpose of that is. You know, were keys like falling out and while you're driving? I don't really know what the point of pushing that button is. This feature is kind of unique. I guess this is where you can put your speeding tickets or something. It's a little glove box. Like, here's that leaf, and you can just empty it out with this like drawer. I mean, that's kind of cool. It's got nice map pockets. This knob here is kind of confusing to a lot of people. It's basically just to unlock and lock the door. So normally you just push and pull on the plunger, but you know, Porsche puts the special knob on there to do that. And this is to open the door. It's also, people are, you know, constantly looking for ways to open the door. This is how you do it. So a little unconventional, but it works. All the handles are a bit more intuitive on the Toyota. It's got a great light right there. This little bulb right here next to the seat is a lumbar support. It's you just pump it up. It's maybe not working like it used to when it was new, but that's kind of a cool feature. Check this out. Here in the center console is a special light that's removable. I guess it's magnetic. And of course I have my cassettes. This car uses the same size tires, 225, but they're actually 14-inch wheels with a much taller profile. So these are, I think, 60 series, whereas the 911 has 50 series in the rear, 55 in the front. The front uses the exact same tires, so it's much easier to rotate tires and, you know, get the most life out of them. The other interesting thing about this Toyota is to lock the door, you have to, you know, lock it like that. It does have central locking, locks both sides, but if you close the door, it's not locked. So in order to lock it, you have to lock it and then you hold the handle up. And now it's locked. The dashboard of the 911 is a timeless design. Big tachometer right there in the front. It's got 3 different gauges for oil. This one's the oil level for the dry sump. This is oil temperature and oil pressure. These cars are practically oil cooled in addition to air. I think the gauge cluster on this car is just a little bit more dated, but it's perfectly functional. You know, everything you need with coolant temperature, oil pressure, battery volts. Battery volts is something that the Porsche doesn't even have. And, you know, a nice big tachometer and of course a speedometer. Electric sunroof is nice. Same thing though, you got to push 2 buttons to close it. This car does need a few paint touch-ups too. Here the spoiler is just kind of faded in there in the red. This is mostly original paint car, I believe. You know, both cars aren't perfect. Some paint touch-up is needed in some areas, like here on the bumper. The wheels have some imperfections in them with little rock chips and stuff. So the longer I own these cars, the better they will look over time. So it's not a big surprise that the 3.2 liter engine has more power than the 2.8, but it really does come alive at about 5,000 RPM. It's not like a fast car compared to modern standards, but it is more exciting. So here's second gear. No power, no power, no power, no power. It just real mild all the way to the red line. You know, it's a fun car. It is a sports car, but it feels like it needs like maybe 20 to 30 more horsepower, especially in the upper RPM range. This one just feels kind of flat. It's a 160 horsepower, 2.8 liter engine, but very torquey. It's easy to drive. It's fun to drive. It's got great acceleration, primarily due to the gears, but it just kind of loses its oomph in the high RPMs. So because these are daily drivers, my choice which one to take is often, like on a hot day, I'll almost always take the Supra because the air conditioner works and I don't want to put the top down in the 911, I'll always take the Supra. If it's a long drive and I just want to listen to music really loud, this car has an amazing sound system. So I'm playing like my CDs from when I was a kid. I still have them, and so I play them in this car, and it's another big reason why I drive this car more than the 911. But if you want a little bit more excitement, a little bit more performance, the 911 is really hard to beat. Like with the top down especially, like a Sunset Cruise, I'll always take the 911. The other nice thing about this car in particular is it has this cup holder. This is from my friend Corey, who makes this, and it works perfectly for these big cups. I'm a fanatical iced tea drinker, so this makes a big difference if you're driving around. Surprisingly, I get a way more compliments on the Supra. So at cruising speeds, about 60 miles an hour, the car's not too loud. It's, easy to have a conversation in it. 70, it's about 76. So if you rev the engine more, it gets louder. That's almost 80. Oh yeah, 80 right there. Okay, so we're going on the same road, same speed, 60 miles an hour, and the sound level is almost the same, maybe slightly lower. That's 76. Yeah, 76. So 65 is about 2,800 RPM. So at that volume level, this car does not have Bluetooth, but you can clearly have a phone conversation or a, passenger conversation, no problem. It's a very enjoyable car. Both cars have hydraulic clutches, but the 911, which I'm in now, is quite a bit stiffer than the Toyota. Let me see if I can estimate the pressure just with my scale. It's about 70 pounds to get it about halfway. I can't go all the way because of the way the car's shaped. But I say 70. The Toyota is like a lot less. It's about maybe 40 pounds. So 40 versus 70. It's a lot easier to push this one. I can go all the way to the floor with just my hand. So if it's a spirited driving day or a canyon day, I think the 911 hands down wins over the Toyota. Both great cars, don't get me wrong. So I feel really fortunate to have each of these cars as what I call daily drivers, and I mean that. We have a family car. My wife's car is a 2020, but I personally drive these to do all the things I drive for. So I'm not just using her car. This is something that I'm lucky to have them, but I've also worked very hard. You guys know that I did the engine rebuild on this one myself, and I did a lot of work to this car to get it to pass smog and to make it run like it does now. So I put work in, and these cars reward me every day I drive them. It's always an adventure. They are reliable. I would take them across country if I could. This one's gonna need a new heater core in the near term. I just found a leak a couple weeks ago. I'm watching it. It's gonna need to be replaced. So I'll do some videos on this car, but it's not why I bought it. I gave my Mazda 3 to my son, and I needed another car, and I needed something that was spacious with a hatchback, and this is what I picked, and I'm really happy with it. I love that these cars will retain their value. As it is, I could sell both of these and go to just about any car lot and buy a brand new car. And that car would be quicker than either of these probably, but that's not what it's about. For me, it's more about the experience and the journey and the analog feeling, the character, the styling, just the excitement when it comes to driving an old car. I completely feel that old cars are better than new cars. And like I said, these will retain their value if not go up. I'm not afraid to put 50,000 miles on each of these, and the way I maintain them, they'll still increase in value. So that's my philosophy. This is not something like sometimes you see on YouTube, you show something that you just want to get the views and then they don't work. Well, I like to think that my stuff works, and I'm driving them as a testament to that.